Hi everyone, welcome to week 2. Just a quick introduction and a couple of questions. So I will share my screen with you. So this week we're looking at policy, politics and ageing in Australia and a little bit around the world. And these different paradigms, we've had different paradigms across history of ways of providing for people in society. So 1900 to 1940, we had the charitable paradigm in Australia and around the world to a certain extent, although the timeframes are not exactly the same around the world. But the charitable paradigm was about the deserving and the undeserving poor. So if you were deserving, which basically means you were nice and middle class and not mentally ill and mostly white Australian, meant that you had access to charity. So charity from private organisations, and the government also operated under a charitable paradigm. Then from 1950 to 2000, and particularly post the war, there was the welfare paradigm. So governments across the world, or across the Western world anyway, borrowed money, invested it in housing, health, and education mostly. And the idea was that everybody was deserving. Everybody deserved to have a particular or a certain standard of living. Then around 2000, then around the 1980s really, we had a realisation that this wasn't sustainable, and there was a real eschewing or a real kind of rejection of the welfare paradigm. Like welfare was seen as bad, and we had this new market paradigm, which is sometimes called a free market paradigm, sometimes called a right-wing paradigm, sometimes called a capitalist paradigm. But this was about how the market will provide for people, and it's a level playing field, and if you fall through the gaps, it's kind of your problem. And then, of course, after a certain point in time, we realised, the late 2000s, the late 2010s to 2000s, coming up to 2010. During that 2010 paradigm, actually in most places around the world, we realised that that wasn't working either, and there was a paradigm called the third way, which was about putting people back into that economic equation. And since then we've kind of moved on. We've got more of an awareness of the environment, of different people and different cultures, and we've got the sustainability paradigm. So when we're thinking about policies that are put in place generally and in relation to ageing, these are the kind of overarching structural paradigms which are informing policy. So to put that more simply, these are the frameworks that are in place in Australia, or have been in place in Australia across time, and the framework that is in Australia at the moment in terms of social policy is very much this biopsychosocial paradigm, which I'm sure you've heard of before, which is about the environment, the person, society and sustainability. So those are the big frameworks that are within which policy and politics are constructed at the moment. So read your study guide. There's lots of information in there that will also help contextualise what I've just said here. And if you don't understand it, because it is quite complex, especially because I know some of you probably haven't done the social policy paper, then we can have a conversation about that. So across the world, you'll see in different countries, and I know a lot of you come from different countries, we'll see this social democratic kind of focus, which means that we will provide for everything and everyone in society, which would be places like Sweden, Japan, New Zealand, Canada, versus the market paradigm, where it is about the market providing and everybody taking care of themselves. So those are two kind of, I suppose, competing ideas or competing ways of providing for people in society. So what I want you to discuss this week, so week 2's content, but we're going to discuss it in week 3's discussion forum, is I want you to have a look at this website called The Conversation. Now you can see here it says academic rigour and journalistic flair. So what this website does is it kind of brings it considers topical issues from an academic kind of perspective. So it's a really good resource for you when you're writing assignments as well, by the way. So this article is about a more sustainable Australia, so staying in work as we age. And so one of the things that the Australian Institute of Health and Ageing reports has revealed is that life, although we are living in better health around the world generally, and now in modern times compared to times in history, in more recent history, like from 1998 to 2009, we have seen an increase in life expectancy, but what we've seen is people living for more years with disability and functional limitations. And of course, from a policy perspective, that makes a person's life cost more because they're accessing more medical resources at the end of their life. So have a read of this article, and these are going to be week 3's questions. So what are the benefits of developing a healthy ageing policy, and what would be the core tenets of that policy? So what do you think a policy should ideally focus on? So a new ageing policy, a sustainable working ageing policy. So what's happening is we're seeing more people going into rural and agricultural work at the end of their lives. So how can you see that relating to well-being? So for example, maybe working, like this person here looks like they're either picking or probably actually thinning apples just before picking time. But working in your older age in a rural environment provides a connection with the land. You're actually doing something which is good for other people, so you're contributing, you're giving back, you're having social interaction, you're having physical exercise. So how could a policy that takes those kinds of, what should we have in terms of a policy when we're thinking about well-being in older age? And the fact that even though we have a longer life expectancy, we're not maybe doing as well physically or mentally as we can. So how could we make social policy in the future, thinking about the future, because I think we should always be thinking about the future, which takes those things into account. Okay, so quick introduction. Nice to see you again, and see you again next week.